Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Drag Illustrated's The Racing Business with me, Jason Dukes. We have another awesome show here this week. This week's guest is Lyle Barnett, and Lyle has pretty much hit on like every point of honestly both life and overcoming and inspiration and all those things. But having a background in starting out in racing and then utilizing new media to the the extent that it has. Winning such races as the U.S. Nationals, and then now also as the host of the Shake and Bake podcast, which is a super awesome show that you definitely need to check out. But Lyle has a great story, and in the what we try and do here on the Drag Illustrated Racing Business Show is to inspire, to educate, to motivate, and the person that we're going to bring on here has a great story and is continuing to push. So want to bring on our guest for this week, Mr. Lyle Barnett. Is Mr. a good surname for you? I know most people can't see most people can't see JT, who's the executive producer. So you get Lyle and JT together, and it's like, wait, is Mr. like, are we doing that, or are they all four?
It works for me, man. It works for me. My latest title would be Dad. I've got a 17-month-old now, so I guess it's really not that new. But navigating what is fatherhood, and learning the ropes there. So a bunch of new things going on for me for sure.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that journey. It's a super, super special one for sure. So tell us, I hit on some of the things, the Shake and Bake podcast, 2002 U.S. Nationals winner, and then we'll talk about whether or not it was a start or not, but with the beer money and Netflix and all that, and so those are a lot of different things that we can hit on. But tell us a little bit more about what Lyle is up to right now.
Yeah, at this very moment, I'm working on just trying to put together. Obviously, let's face it, the funding and what it takes. To run an NHRA Pro Modified program. I very, very recently struck a deal with Scott Tidwell, and I'm going to drive one of his entries for the entire 2024 NHRA Pro Modified season. So I'm currently on the hunt, like so many of us, for sponsorship, and in the meantime, like you said, I've got my beer money car. I actually was in Mooresville earlier today, picked it up from the engine shop, brought it here to my shop in Goldston, North Carolina at MAC FAB Beadlocks. The business my dad and I run, and going to try to get that thing to go hit a little shootout somewhere local this weekend. I'll still try to stay true to my grassroots, and where I got my start here around home, and have a lot of fun with that thing, but between learning how to be a dad with a 17-month-old, my wife and I got the business here at MAC FAB. Took the year off from NHRA Pro Modified this year, just being completely transparent. Just didn't have the funding to do it, but the NHRA Pro Modified board, Deb, Eric Diller, Justin Elks, Scott Tidwell on there. A lot of these people have worked really hard to bring NHRA Pro Modified to the forefront, and got some TV time that is locked in, which has really helped a lot. So trying to make it easier for people like myself that, don't have these big businesses and can't self-fund it to go out and find the sponsorship and the money it takes to do this. JT knows, everybody watching this show probably knows that in the grand scheme of it, this stuff isn't cheap. So I'm just one of the many out there getting geared up to go to PRI and shoot my best shot and try to make it happen.
Nice. And so also you have the big old podcast too. And tell us a little bit about that. And then also tell us a little bit more about MAC FAB.
Yeah. So, just like being on here with you, anytime you get the opportunity to put your face in front of a camera and let people hear your voice, it's good to do. Stevie and I never really had plans to have a podcast. We started doing some banter back and forth via some stories on our social media platforms. And people were like, you guys need a podcast. You guys need a podcast. And we looked at each other one day at the track. And we're like, screw it, man, let's do it. So we started the Shake and Bake show. We had Courtney Enders on very early, and it went really well, so we decided it was good to have a third party there with us. So all three of us equally, are responsible for the show, and it's been very well received. and has gone really well. It's kind of more of your R-rated, I guess, parental advisory notice, not for the kids. We tell it like it is. We cuss, we have a few drinks, and and have a good time on there. So if you do not know about the Shake and Bake Show, it's random Tuesdays. We try to do it every other Tuesday. We took like 4 weeks off, just all of us on the road, finishing up the year. We had one this week. We will more than likely have one next week, being that it will immediately follow Pomona, and fingers crossed Double E gets number 6 in Pro Stock World Championships this weekend. So it's going really well. And we're starting to get into kind of the groove of where we're going to start looking for show sponsors and this, that, and the other. And Stevie and I use it to kind of as a platform for us to look for sponsorship for ourselves. It's great for Courtney and Elite and Flo. So it's going really well. MAC FAB, I've been associated with MAC FAB, the name, since its conception. It was really just what we put on a T-shirt for our little race team. We had those 4 of us that had cars here local. Tommy Kirk, who started the beadlock side of MAC FAB, saw an opportunity to start a small business doing beadlock conversions on existing drag racing wheels. Coming up, in the drag radial world, when it was very new, most of us just ran your standard non-beadlocked wheel, maybe some Permatex high tack or some glue and some screws. As tire technology and just overall race car technology advanced, we saw, as the cars got faster, beadlocks became a necessity. And Tommy saw a niche market there to take existing wheels and convert them to beadlock. There was nobody doing it at the time. You either had to buy a beadlocked wheel or you bought a non-beadlock wheel. Nobody was beadlocking non-beadlock wheels. Right. So we started doing that 17 years ago, and we're still going strong today. My dad and I took it over completely a little over a year ago, and just something we wanted to do to stay in the industry and keep providing for the folks out there that, became our family, right? I've been doing this long enough now that the large majority of my friend group revolves around the sport. And, it's so cool to be heavily involved in what goes on in the day-to-day world of drag racing. We're not specific to drag racing. We do a lot of street car stuff, off-road, motorcycles. Now this daunt racing deal is a big thing. We're beadlocking these 26 and 30-inch wheels. And so we can beadlock pretty much anything that's aluminum, and it's going well. It's, it's something that I use. We advertise on anything that I'm driving, and it's cool to be involved in the industry day to day.
Gotcha. So let's go ahead and tell the story of Lyle Barnett. There's lots of excitement. There's lots of ups, really high ups, really low downs. So you can tell as much or as little as you want to. But where does the story of Lyle Barnett start?
So growing up, very fortunate. Lived in a nice home and was always provided for. And I'll be honest, I got pretty much whatever I wanted growing up. Had 4-wheelers and dirt bikes and you name it. And early on, I was kind of interested in the motocross side of things. And so I had a racing 4-wheeler, and one of my buddies raced 4-wheelers. And while I never really raced a whole lot, I would go to track days and do some stuff. And that same friend got heavily involved in round track racing. And because he did it, I thought that's what I wanted to do. And my dad and I were actually very close, very, very close to buying a late model stock truck, and was going to go do the NASCAR style deal. Which track were you guys going to start at? So local to us is Caraway Speedway here in North Carolina. My buddy that ended up going on to win 3 track championships in a row did so at Hickory Motor Speedway. Yep. But any of these small asphalt tracks around here, we would have more than likely ran at. And would I have been successful there? Maybe, but my dad grew up drag racing, and we were days away, literally like 2 days away from buying the truck. And I came home from football practice one Thursday night, and he's like, "What do you think about drag racing?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm freaking 15 years old and full of piss and vinegar." And, and I don't care. High horsepower, loud cars, chicks dig that stuff, right? You're a teenager. And instead of going to buy a late model stock truck, we bought a 4th gen Camaro with a 468-inch big block in it, went bracket racing. Then X275, the drag radial scene was you were starting to see some of the, tracks just pick up a rule set.
Actually, but before we go on to the next thing, and remember where we left off, because other than that, we'll end up talking about, but I think that is from a business of both racing and drag racing, is I think that's like a super pivotal point, because I don't know what year you're talking about, but like I'm assuming that circle track and like the pinnacle of circle track, which was NASCAR, was way higher than the pinnacle of drag racing at that time. And given a 15-year-old that option, like a lot of 15-year-olds would have just picked the circle track stuff. What drew you to drag racing, and also what lesson is there for the industry? Because there's a lot of people at that age that's picking between racing and something else, and then also if they choose racing, now they got to choose drag racing, like you said, motocross, circle track racing, and all the different things.
The decision for me was really just because my dad had no prior knowledge, and at that time, it's different now, but at that time you kind of had to have your own gig. You needed someone with you that knew setups and, and all the things that, and I don't know much about it because we never even got into it, but then you kind of needed to have your own wealth of knowledge just in your camp, and we just didn't know anything about it. So we were going to lean hard on, my buddy that ended up going on to be very successful there. His dad was a round track racer back in the day, and not that they couldn't have helped us, but we just didn't my dad and I didn't have the knowledge nor the resources. We were just going to have to buy whatever they told us to. And my dad knew enough from his background in drag racing that we bought a car, and, and he kind of dusted off the old notebook, and we not immediately had success, but we could immediately go and compete. Right. So, at that time, I think it was probably equally as easy just to get in, maybe a little more so in the drag racing world, just because it didn't take a specific, a purpose-built race car to go and drag race, right? I mean, technically, I've got 2 smart cars out back here. I could enter those in a bracket race, right? You're not just going to go enter anything into a round track race. So I think from the grassroots level, getting into drag racing is a little easier, and you can just kind of pick and choose how fast you want to go. In the round track stuff, if you're going to run a Legends car, you got to buy a Legends car. If you're going to run a late model or a limited, you got to buy a late model or a limited. You can go run 7.0 index and anything that you can find that'll run 7.0. Or if you're going to run open comp, where there is no index, you can just take whatever you want and dial it in,
Right.
Now we bought a purpose-built race car to start with, but we didn't have to, so at the time that was just the easier route for us, mainly because it was just what we knew,
Right.
And today now it's the round track world is totally different. I only know this because my buddy that I'm speaking of still dabbles in it some, and anymore you pretty much have to be associated with some big, I don't want to call them a super team, but some big known, almost a rent or ride type deal just to go and compete anymore, and while that's the case in drag racing to a certain extent, it's not 100% necessary anymore to go out there and have fun and compete. So, for us, it was the only reason we went the direction drag racing was just because that's just what my dad knew and what we felt like we could pick up on the fastest.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah. All right. So we left off at the X275. Yep.
Yeah. So, X275 then was in its very, very early days. And when I say early days, they were running 530s in the 8th mile when we built our first drag radial car. For those of you that are unfamiliar, the X275 cars are now running 14s. They've picked up over a second since then and run 170 plus miles an hour, and it takes a freaking hot rod to do it, but we decided we wanted to go heads up racing. Around here, the local tracks had picked up their own kind of rule set based around the X275 or Outlaw 275 rule sets. And you could just go to any track that had a small tire drag race, right? And we started doing that local. Then were the earlier days of Donald Long's both No Mercy and Lights Out at South Georgia Motorsports Park. So everybody geared up to go to those 2 a year, and Civil Wars at Rockingham Dragway just down the road here also held very similar events. So for, the majority of the year, you could race about as much as you wanted to or could afford then in the small tire drag radial stuff, and we did that for many, many years. I mean, in fact, I did it up until, my crash in 2015, and then beyond it and I still do some today, but more focused on pro modified racing and in my no prep stuff. And so you were saying the year earlier in 2006, I would have turned 16 later that year. So would have been when I started in the index and bracket style racing. By 2008, we were heads up racing, and I've been heads up racing ever since.
Gotcha. And what was going through your head at that point? Because I mean, with the different, TV coverages and internet company coverages, things ended up blowing up pretty big. What was going through your head though at that time? 2007, 2008.
At the time, I was just a teenager that thought it was cool. I had a race car, and at that time, knowing what I know now, there were some opportunities back then through YouTube and other things that I completely just missed the boat on, but hell, you didn't know it was going to end up the way it is today, and back then live streaming really wasn't a thing. So you posted race results on Yellow Bullet, that, the forum that was so big back in the day. And then, the early parts of social media then, both, I guess, MySpace then and Facebook, so that's kind of how you knew who was racing when and where and who had won and what had happened. And that's just kind of how we did it for, it was my dad funded 110% of it. He's been a very successful businessman up most of his career, and we just kind of did our own thing. He tuned it. I drove it. I had high school buddies that would tag along and could put fuel in it. And when we went forced induction and had to carry ice in coolers and stuff, learned how to do that. And we had a lot of fun, and we were successful, man. We won a lot. We were kind of the first ones to really get a hold of a pro charge combination around here and did really, really well, up until we went into Radio versus the World with the Corvette. And that would have been in 2015. So for 7 years, I raced local with just the same old stuff, and while we went faster, the progression in horsepower and ET and mile per hour didn't really pick up a whole lot, until, I don't know, probably 2011 or 12 is when, people like David Wolf and Steve Jackson and people like that really pushed the envelope and forced people to really run their stuff hard, but man, we had a good time back then, dude. I sit and think often about how I miss those days. When a camper shell on the back of a 250 and a 28-foot enclosed trailer was hot stuff, and now you roll into some of these big races. If you ain't got a toter home and a stacker or a 53-foot trailer and a transfer truck, you ain't nothing,
Right.
But man,
tell us about some of the business lessons though that you learned during that time period.
Well, back then, it was work as absolutely as hard as you could, make as much money as you could to afford to do what we do. There weren't big sponsored racers running around, for the most part, and at least at the grassroots level, which is where I was at, it was for manufacturers, kind of some product sponsorship was kind of hanging around there and whatnot, but the beadlock business in particular back then was super new, and we were just gunning to get our stuff on some cars so that we could take some pictures, post some pictures, and talk about our stuff being out there, but again, back then, man, when I was young and and a teenager and my dad was paying for everything, hell, I didn't care. If we had some beer in a cooler and went to a racetrack and had a good time, I was good to go, and it didn't take as much for the racetracks back then, not as much overhead for those guys to prep as good. Their prep just wasn't as available, and we didn't require as much, and so much has changed, when you think back to those days and the way it is now, the media outlets, there weren't as many of them, and it's way easier today to get your word out there and promote yourself. And even as from a small business, with all the social media platforms that are available and all of the media outlets, but on the flip side of that, it can be kind of flooded, today. And you've got to keep your face out here in front of a camera and keep talking, and post on your social medias often and be stupid sometimes, or say something funny or do something funny or talk crap about somebody or something. It's a lot easier to get it out there, but it takes a lot more effort to be different and make it happen for sure.
Yeah. Back during that time, like outside of your family, who are some of the people that you looked up to or that were not necessarily personal mentors, but just that you looked up to or followed or idolized at that point?
Well,
who were you striving to be?
Back in those days when Big Dog was running at Piedmont and stuff, the Todd Tutteros and the Charles Carpenters and the Ricky Smiths and Scotty Cannons and stuff like that were people that we looked up to, just because that was realistic, right? I mean, we're all, I've always, like so many, I've been a John Force fan and was a Greg Anderson fan, and still fans of both of those today. But, back then that seemed like a little far-fetched, right? Like, you're never going to drive a funny car, but from a grassroots, or what I considered a grassroots standpoint, people like I've mentioned there were people that I looked up to and always wanted to drive a pro mod. Man, I wanted to race in Big Dog at Piedmont Dragway on a Thursday night so damn bad I could stand it. and the fact that today I'm racing alongside those guys and competing against them, and outrunning them and getting beat by them, and it is pretty cool that is where I'm at today, but like you had mentioned earlier, the ups and downs, there were some lows there that I thought probably I would never end up here. And so I've been very blessed to have gotten to where I've gotten, and am able to race along some of these guys that I idolized as a young kid.
Yeah. So the next stop was Radial versus the World, you said?
Yeah, we my dad and one of his good buddies, Chad Branson, went in together on a Radial versus the World car. We bought a kind of a turnkey operation from, actually Barry Mitchell had it back then, and it was a blue chrome Corvette, had a twin turboed Big Brad Anderson Hemi in it that Pete Harrell at HED had built, and kind of a not necessarily state of the art, but it was about the nicest stuff you could buy then to go Radial versus the World racing, and I was 23 years old at the time and young. Me and Jamie Hancock, I think, were two of the youngest to race in the class, and he was hauling ass back then, and I was just trying to get this new program figured out with my dad and Pete Harrell tuning it, and Eric Yost at Customs by Biggin done a bunch of fab work and was helping us with the chassis and stuff on that thing. So we were very new to the class, but gung-ho, and ready to do it. And we struggled a lot of 2015, just figuring, the new car blues out. Back then you couldn't just go buy a cookie cutter operation like you can today, put a Proline Hemi and a Pro Charger in it and buy one of Steve Petty's tune-ups. You can go out there and go 370s, but you just couldn't do that back then. You had to kind of figure it out on your own. And we struggled a lot of that year, and had finally towards the middle to back half of the year had really started to figure it out, or felt like we were headed in the right direction. And 2 weeks before we went to South Georgia for No Mercy that year, we had went to the finals here at Piedmont at a little small tire shootout, and felt like we were there, and went to Georgia fired up, had been faster than I'd ever been every run we made down the racetrack, and rolled into Q1 on Thursday night with a tune-up in the car that was going to go as fast as I'd ever gone, and everything looked good, right? Go there, roll through the water box and do a burnout and back up. It's cool outside. Helmet was fogging, or visor was. I picked that thing up and never put it back down. And let go of the button in Q1, left the starting line good, and about 400 foot into that run, life changed for me. I had probably, arguably one of the worst door car fires that modern day drag racing has seen, and for 28 seconds we burnt in that thing, and a couple ways I think I look at that is, it was obviously I wouldn't do it again, and don't suggest anybody try it, but that accident and my recovery and the support I got and the comeback and all those things, there's no denying that they are a reason that I have ended up where I am today. I've had a lot of good people come and stand behind me when they, were inspired by my comeback and wanted to help me get back going. And Jason Digby turned me loose in a world record holding, leaf spring dart that we raced for several years, and and won some races and set some records, and really, was one that was a huge part of my comeback, but that moment there was, like I said, was life changing for sure. And some ways good, and not a whole lot bad anymore. I mean, some physical changes obviously don't look quite like I did before, but still look better than JT. So that's really all.
Yeah, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. Well, yeah, I mean, it was honestly, it was probably life, like not just for you, but life altering for everyone. Like for people in your inner circle and people in your outer circle. And there's about 100 different questions that I have in 100 different areas. But one that I'll talk about is just like, being the person and being the patient. Like, can you talk about what it was like to receive support, and then also like what do you say to people? Because I know in racing, like I'm sort of battled with this a couple times a year, where it's like, man, I need to like hurry up and write this card, and then it's like, this person's not going to see it, or it's like, I need to send some money. It's like, everyone else is sending money, but this is a good opportunity to hear it from the person being supported side. Like, what does all that stuff mean to you?
Yeah, immediately there was, stickers and decals and T-shirts made, and like the next morning there were cars with "at South Georgia" where I had just crashed with my decal on them, and the immediate support was pretty unbelievable. But the support that came after that is what it's hard to wrap your head around. The financial support, there were tons of donations and GoFundMe's, and and all the things that rolled in. Because for 2 months I was, in the burn center down there, and my dad lived in my motorhome in the parking lot, and my mom and my step parents and my girlfriend were living in hotels, and like it was all these things and that came about, and all the folks that supported me along the way are the reason that they were able to do all that, and there's no adequate way to thank them, right? Like you can tell them every day, and I just try to go out there and be the best new version, I guess you would say, of me, and show them that their support, while I inspired them, their support inspired me to keep pushing, to pick up what was left, learn a new normal, and just get my ass back out there and get the job done, and because of all those people, I was able to do that, and I could not thank any of them enough, and none of them had to do it, but they out of the goodness of their heart, and the good Lord blessed me with a great, not only a great inner circle, but the drag racing community as a whole is a very special place. And while we talk junk and banter back and forth, when one's down, we come around them, like a village, and pick them back up, and it was just so cool to see, and was proof that. Of all the motorsports that are out there, I'm a firm believer that drag racing is the best one, and in my case, and what happened to me down there, I think proved that.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I have so many questions. I almost want to just ask you, like, what's the question that you haven't been asked that you wish people either would ask or wouldn't ask? And you don't even have to answer.
For sure.
I'm sorry.
I said I've been asked a bunch of them. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I definitely don't want to shame anyone who has had an incident and just decided that they can't go on, or that they can't get the strength to do it. But for you're a super inspirational story, in that you kept going and continue to keep going. And like you said, now it pretty much created a new normal where it's not an afterthought, but it really is an afterthought. But where, like, other than the people and the support, like from the inside, like where did that inspiration to keep going come from?
Man, I just think it was something God-given, a gift that he blessed me with. And there's a couple of my buddies, especially the one that I was talking about earlier, that races round track, he said, I have seen you fall in buckets of turds and come out smelling like roses so many times, and I just decided to pick it up and keep on trucking. I devoted at that time a lot of my life to drag racing and the industry and the sport. And if at a bare minimum, I felt like I owed it to the people that had supported me to just go out there and and show them that I appreciate it, and and at least try it again. And thankfully I was able. The doctor's hospital down there in Augusta, Georgia, the JMS Burn Center, did a great job patching me back together. All 5 fingers, all 5 toes, both hands and both feet, and a pair of lungs to breathe with. And I obviously cannot thank them enough either. They did a fantastic job down there, and with all the many grafting surgeries and all the things I went through down there that they had to, just perfectly do, and they did a perfect job. But hitting on what you had said about the ones that maybe don't continue on, we never know why, right? Was it a personal choice? Was one of their injuries keep them from doing so? Was it a husband or wife that said absolutely not? Was it,
Right.
I mean, there's all kinds of reasons, so don't judge anybody for deciding, what, I think I've escaped death there. I think I'm just going to hang it up, and that's okay. But, for the ones maybe that are having trouble deciding yay or nay or what they're going to do, there's, whether you're in the middle of it or it's in the past, but you haven't quite gotten over the psychological side, whether it's PTSD or depression, like I was told very early on, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and you just got to head down, nose to the grindstone, and keep on ripping, and that's what I decided to do. And I didn't do it alone. I had great family support. 3 of my, my now wife, stepmom and stepdad, but all 3 medical professionals. So, I've said it many times. I don't know how anybody leaves the hospital in the condition that I left the hospital in and comes home without some kind of medical professional there close by.
Right.
Because I had help, in a dang closet full of medical supplies, and they took very good care of me, and I can't thank them enough for that either. But man, it's just always been in me to just keep on trying. I'm one it's hard to tell me no. You got to show me if it can't be done, and I just decided early on that I was gonna at least give it another shot, and another shot turned into now what looks like a lifelong career. So it's been pretty cool.
Gotcha. And that, thank you for sharing that, all of it. And like I said, I hope this inspires someone out there, and also, and if it doesn't, there's also nothing wrong with that too.
That's right.
You talk about now coming into the career that it is now, and we started it talking about the smaller tracks, the local smaller stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but now it's exploding into what it is today with all of these different medias, all of these streaming services and different things like that. Like, how did you get involved with the Netflix thing? What did you think you were getting involved with? What did it end up being, and how did that change?
That Netflix, it's an original series. It's called Fastest Car. They shot season 1. I'd actually interviewed for that. They kind of do it regionally. They travel around and find, if you haven't watched the show is really based more around the story of the drivers, and then there's a little bit of racing involved. I'd interviewed for season 1, but just did not have a car that really fit the mold. They called me again about season 2, and at the time, literally at that moment, we were in the process of building Beer Money on the Horsepower Wars $10,000 drag shootout that James Lawrence and those folks did at Power Auto Media out in California. We were building the car on that TV show right then. And I said, look, there's no telling how this is going to go, but if we manage to win this show, I will have a car that will fit what you're trying to do, and lo and behold, we ended up winning the $10,000 drag shootout season 1 with Beer Money. As soon as we won, the next day, actually that night, I sent the producer of the Netflix show a picture, and I said, well, we won, so let me know whenever I need to be, wherever I need to be, and so then we did the Netflix deal. It was a really cool show, and I enjoyed it was a lot of filming, a lot of traveling. First race was in South Carolina. When we won that one, they shipped us and all of our stuff to California to race the final. So a cool experience. I won't ruin it for those that haven't watched it. Go check it out. We're on season 2 of that Fastest Car show on Netflix. But I had no idea what was going to happen around my social media following that show. When it hit the air, dude, especially my Instagram at the time just blew up. It was I was getting thousands by the week, and and it was just it did, that show alone did a lot for just my social media presence. Which, I mean, I hate to say it kind of, but it is what it is, that your social media presence as someone like me who is, public figure-ish, I guess, or an athlete, a professional racer, is not everything, but it's a lot of it,
It's a lot of things. Yeah.
And, all the tools that they give you there, whether it's through stories or, now through like reels are like the big thing now, and now there's TikTok, which I haven't dove too much into because I manage social media for MAC FAB and for myself, and like it's just another one I just haven't dabbled in, which I'll probably regret one day. And even with YouTube, that market has just gotten so saturated, especially in the performance aftermarket and racing. Like it takes, to be really successful in any of those, is basically a full-time job, and you just got to pick one, and the guys that do all of it, like Cletus McFarland and guys like that, like God love them, he had it right.
And God love their teams too. Like they're not doing it alone.
And it's pretty remarkable what they were able to do, and no matter what, none of us, if we started a YouTube channel today, would never amount to what that dude has been able to do, but he will also admit that it's for us that are trying to attract sponsors and while our success on the racetrack is a big part of it, what we do off of the racetrack on those is equally as important, so I've learned a lot from people like that. I still don't do a perfect job at it, but I do the best that I can with all that I've got going on, and like I say, it's just so important, to do all those things.
Right. Well, and then, so, then you go from there and then start doing some, I can't really say formal, but more like NHRA type pro mod stuff. What did you see when you entered that world? And again, more from business standpoint, like what did you see when you entered that world? But the other thing too is just was the TV like outlawish world like accepted when you got there? Do people understand the following that you have? Like, does the marketing of that, like, how did all that work?
Yeah, when I came into the NHRA, I had no idea what to expect. If you're familiar with Elite Motorsports at all, they're the largest professional team there, and they're how do I say this and not get a phone call from Richard and get cussed out? They're more of on the outlaw side, I guess you would say, they're t-shirt wearing, cussing, tell you how it is. But they're professionals and they are, some of the best to do it, and coming in with them was probably better for me than coming in with somebody who expected me to have my shirt tucked in all the time. But the way I, compare the NHRA to what I did before is where in my outlaw style stuff, you could walk around with your shirt off. In the NHRA, you need to have your shirt tucked in, and it's professional. It's the pinnacle of drag racing. It's professional motorsports, and it's exactly how it should be. But that's just kind of how I compare it to what I did before. So I very quickly had to learn, that you can't always say what you think. You can't always do what you want. There's always a camera somewhere. There's always people watching, and and you need to be the best version of you when you roll through the gates at an NHRA racetrack. I also very soon learned after that even when you're not at the racetrack, your fans who are following you on said social media platforms are paying attention, and you should also be your best version of yourself on there. So that alone was probably the biggest change or the biggest awakening for me, right? Like I realized that, hey dude, you can't go on your social media and tell some MF or how stupid he is now. Like you got to be more careful with how you do that and when you do that. So I can't remember what the rest of your question was. I think I've answered part of it, but maybe remind me.
Well, I guess also just coming into the buttoned up world of NHRA and having some of the assets that you did, like you have a bunch of people that already know your story, you have a lot of followers, and is there any resentment on the side of like the people who've been NHRA drag racing all the time and they don't have the followers that you did because you're on national TV type stuff? Like,
nah, man. Nah, I never really saw any of that. The ones that knew kind of about me, whether it was through beer money or through some form of racing before, were super accepting of me being there. And then the ones who learned of my story and then started following me, because of my presence in NHRA, and are now ask me, man, are you running beer money? How's beer money doing? This, that, and the other. I had zero kickback from anybody on either side of the fence. Obviously you've got the guys, oh, Mr. Big Time now, you're over there doing this, and I'm like, dude, hey, the opportunity's there. You just got to put yourself out there and try to make it happen, but no, it was there. That was one, I guess, another good point. Everybody associated with the NHRA, from Glenn Cromwell all the way, down to the guys helping pick up shoots and stuff at the top end, man, they were all, super glad that we were there and happy to see us succeed over there and do well. It's been a pretty cool ride so far, and I'm just happy that my tenure there in the NHRA appears, at least for now, to be far from over, because I've really enjoyed it over there. There's nothing like racing in the NHRA, from their, the structured schedule throughout the day, most days being done by 5:30 and being able to go to dinner with your team or your family or both, and it's just an unbelievable experience there. And, they do a very good job and run a hell of an event. It's super cool.
Gotcha. So what's next for you?
Like I was telling you before we came on, I'm just on the pursuit for sponsorship right now. I'm not one, my dad neither, we're not ones that can self-fund this deal. Scott Tidwell and the Proline team, Steve Petty, and, tuning this deal, it's a championship caliber team. I'm super excited to go over there and join them. I've always raced against them, and not necessarily were we arch rivals or anything, or disliked each other. But I just always raced for people that were, outside of the Proline camp, and I'm super excited to go join them and be a part of what they've got over there. Cause they've, Eric Dillard and everybody there has done a great job, creating this empire almost, and they've got, tons of these cars out there running, and I've, just honored, honestly, to be chosen to go over there and represent them in the NHRA. But, none of that comes without a price tag, right? And so right now I'm just, I'm on the pursuit for some sponsorship to try and piece together the full year, I've, whether it's on my social media platform, got a website, Lyle Barnett Racing. My email there is Lyle@Lyle Barnett Racing, and be glad to send over anything to anybody out there that's looking to market in the NHRA space. It's a great place to go. I've heard nothing but good things from both past, present, and people who are looking to get in there. They've all agree that it's a great place to promote your business. And JT, or and anybody with Drag Illustrated especially, will tell you that I try to stay pretty active on my social media platform, and tend to, I feel like I do a decent job at representing them off the racetrack. So just looking to try and piece it together to make the full pull.
Gotcha. How about any future goals on the TV side of things or with the podcast?
Obviously we want the podcast to grow and continue to do well. It gets tons of viewership on Tuesday nights, and we're very thankful for all of you if you tune in already for doing so. That I've had some talk about being a part of some shows and whatnot that revolve around motorsports or the automotive world, and obviously am looking forward to see where those go. I have aspirations to drive in Top Fuel. It is the pinnacle. That's that and Funny Car that are the top of this deal, and would love to find myself in the seat of one of those things one day. Recently licensed in A Fuel with Randy Meyer a year ago, and have my A Fuel license now, and just keeping that door open for should the opportunity arise to go and compete at that level. But I am not in any way, shape, or form feel like I had to settle to go to NHRA Pro Modified. It's probably the hottest and most rapidly growing class in NHRA right now. It's got tons of attention. Those folks at Finish Line Consultants with the NHRA Pro Mod board and whatnot have done just such a great job, man, at giving us, a stance there in the pits, right? Like when you walk by the NHRA Pro Mod pits, that's where you're at, and they've just done such a good job with that. And I'm so glad to be associated there. I love Pro Mod. If I could compete in the class for the rest of my career, if that's where I'm going to stay, I'm good with it, but the goal here this year is to win a championship. That's, like I said, with Scott Tidwell and the Pro Line team, I feel like I'm in a good spot. And, and I don't want to just win one. If we win it next year, I want to win it the next 100 years, in a row.
100.
So, yeah. Yes. So, that's the short-term goal here is to win win a championship next year. And then if it comes about, I would love to end up in a top fuel car.
Gotcha. Well, we end every show out with 13 questions. The only rule is answers can only be 1 minute each. So you ready to do this?
Yeah, let's rip it.
All right, cool. It's called Put Up Your Dukes. Let's put up your dukes. Good deal. You ready? You sure you're ready?
I don't because I wasn't ready for this. So
no. They're all.
I'm as ready as I'm ever going to be.
I feel you. Also, so first question is, what's the strength of either Lyle Barnett or the industry or Pro Mod or some of the different TV things that you've done? Just what's the strength of the industry?
I mean, I think a combination of all those is my strength in the industry. I've had some great opportunities to be on TV through the Netflix and through Horsepower Wars and the NHRA and all these things and all the great live streaming platforms that are out there. But right now in drag racing in particular, I think it's as healthy as it's ever been. Car counts prove that. There's so many great sanctioning bodies through the PDRA, the Midwest Pro Mod Series, all the great things that Victor Alvarez and the fine folks at Bradenton Motorsports Park do throughout the winter when there's nowhere else to race except Florida. I think that right now we are in the moment of as healthy as it's been in a long time. Wes Buck, all of you guys at Drag Illustrated do a great job to help with that. The Pro Series race coming up, the World Series of Pro Mod, NHRA Pro Mod with full car counts all year long. I think we're right in the thick of some of the best days that in my lifetime that we've seen. And I'm just super excited and thankful to be a part of that.
Biggest weakness?
Biggest weakness right now, while it's easy to say that the social media and whatnot is easy would be an easy answer for it to be the strongest. It's the keyboard warriors right now, I think, make it are the weakest part of what we've got going on. The constant bashing of racetracks for not giving them enough runs, or, the ones that are closing down and all the things. I think that is probably the weakest part of what we've got going on right now is just, and it's the people that are on the outside, the people who are quote unquote unassociated that just feel the need to go on there and bash these small racetracks. The small racetracks are struggling, man, and talking crap about them and hurting their car count on their Thursday night testing tunes is the worst thing we could do. So support your local racetracks. Don't bring food in the gate. Buy a hot dog at the stand and a Coke. And even if you don't have a car, go sit and watch your buddies and your hometown heroes run up and down the racetrack at your small local tracks because they need us.
Biggest opportunity?
Biggest opportunity for me?
For you or for the industry? Wherever you want to go with it.
I think
your show, baby.
The biggest opportunity for the industry right now, and not because I'm out there looking for it, is to take advantage of the great platform that the NHRA gives and our presence on Fox. Numbers have been great this year, and on Flow Racing for live stream, Motor Mania, Bane Shift, whoever's out there doing it. I think the biggest opportunity right now is to support some of these racers that are out there grinding and trying to make it happen. And I know you're like, oh yeah, you're just saying that because you're looking for sponsorship, but I believe that. I think that there's a huge opportunity for not only corporate America, but some of these businesses that have done really well over the past few years to go out there, support these local or support these small time racers or any racers for that matter, and promote your stuff on Fox Sports and all these live streaming platforms. I think there's great opportunity there, opportunity for return on investment, whether you use it as a tax write-off, or whatever you want to do. But I think the biggest opportunity lies there in my opinion.
Biggest threat?
That would go right back to to what I was saying earlier, the biggest threat to our sport right now is track closures, and all these Walmarts and Amazons buying up this prime property to turn it into warehouses or car lots. And the suburbs of these bigger cities and then the inner cities growing, and taking out these little rural racetracks. I think that's our biggest threat right now is just growth. While it's good for our towns and good for our cities, can be really bad for our racetracks. And, for those of you that are looking at buying a new house, if you buy a new house within a couple miles of a racetrack, guess what? They race over there, and it's good for your town. It's good for your town when all these big money teams come in and spend money in your town and get hotel rooms and buy food and buy your fuel and all these things. So embrace it. Be proud of what your small, whether it's a small racetrack or a big NHRA national event holding quarter-mile racetrack. Be proud of what's there and let us do our thing, man. We're just trying to make it out here.
Yeah. Most overrated part of being Lyle Barnett?
The most overrated? Man, it's not overrated. The most
overrated.
overrated.
I didn't say you are overrated. What's the most overrated part of being Lyle Barnett?
The most overrated part of being Lyle Barnett. Golly, I don't even know how to answer that.
Well, and I can double it up with the next question is most underrated. So you could answer both or.
The most overrated part is how people think that my lack of eyebrows makes me feel indifferent. No, I'm just kidding.
He doesn't care about anything.
I don't care at all. The most overrated part of Lyle Barnett, dude, I really don't even know how to answer that. The most underrated part I would say is I don't even know how to answer that either. You stumped me.
It's the indifference. It happens.
I don't know how to answer that.
No, that's fine. You don't have to. We have pass buttons here on the show.
Passing on that one.
Pass 2 times. Biggest mental hurdle.
Oof. The biggest mental hurdle from me would date back to 2015 when I was just piling through the PTSD and the depression and whatnot and all that I went through, And so I guess a modern day hurdle, I'm my own worst enemy sitting in the race car. Sometimes when I go up there and I'm the underdog and I think that I have to make the difference on the start line. And hey, look, a lot of the time I'm able to do so. But my biggest mental hurdle right now is myself and overthinking what I got to do. I do way better when I sit down in that race car, think of a good song to hum as I'm pulling through the water box and go up there and not think about it.
Nice. What's the last thing that you have to say here for the older generation, the people that came ahead of us?
Be proud of what you kind of put forth out there and laid the foundation and what we're trying to do to continue forward. I think some of the hardest part of what we're doing today is the sport has evolved kind of rapidly over the past couple years, and while it may look different at the core, it's still first one to the freaking finish line, man. And I just hope that they're proud and of what we're doing today. And what we continue to try to do. The world's a scary place. There's a lot of scary things going on around us, and with all that's going on, we still manage to pack the stands on any given Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And it's because, that they laid the groundwork for us years and years ago. And I hope, they are, but my one word or a couple words to them would be just to be proud of what we're doing.
Gotcha. What's the last thing you have to say to the younger generation, folks younger than us?
I'm glad you asked. This may take longer than a minute. Because something that I've seen, over the past couple years for the younger generation, is it's so easy to get on this computer right here and type up sponsor me, right? And the question that I ask those that ask me, how do you get sponsors? How do you do what you do? And I ask them, what can you do for the people that you are asking sponsorship from? If Stand 21, who is a sponsor of mine, I wear all of their racing gear, love the products they have. Eve and all the guys at Stand 21 are great people. In order for them to justify giving me a fire suit, they need to sell 10 in order to make up for the one that they've sold me, right? So, what can you do to help Stand 21 or Pro Charger or Precision Turbo or Fuel Tech or Holly or whoever? What can you do if they are to sponsor you or give you product to help them get a return on their investment, right? And I see it all the time. People who are very poorly manage their social media platforms and go out and buy a race car and, hey, I'm looking for sponsorship for 2024. Well, what are you doing? What are you doing in the off season? What are you doing to grind and help promote yourself? And what have you done, right? Like, have you had success both on and off the racetrack to prove that you are somebody who is worthy of the sponsorship you're asking for? And it like these companies, especially within our industry, that they get beat up all the time. I called Doug Cook. We talk a lot, the owner of Motion Raceworks, and I asked him, how many sponsorship proposals have you got? And he said, man, it's unbelievable. The guys that, just hit me up. Hey man, I got a Fox body. I race here local. I'm looking for some sponsorship, and for them to justify sponsoring you, they have to see some kind of return, right? They can't just be shelling money out, right, and just giving it away in hopes that you're thankful, right? They have to see some kind of return. So for the younger generation, one, if you have aspirations to drive an NHRA Pro Modified or to drive a radio versus the world car, is just keep your nose down, nose to the grindstone, and fucking just try to make it happen. I should not have said that. Freaking
no,
just
you
try
can
to
say it. That's the passion. Say it. They need to hear it.
Just try to make it, make it happen. Don't wait for it to happen. Go out there and do it, and I think there's so much laziness in the younger generation. They think that, with a TikTok and a social media platform, that's all they need to make it happen. But you got to go out there and prove it, dirty hands and a sunburnt face, and a lot of this younger generation just not willing to do that. And I know there are some out there that do. And for those of you that are out there trying to make it happen, I commend you for it. And your day will come. You just got to keep trying. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It may not happen next year. It may not happen in 5 years, but it's just to stay at it. And if you're out there looking for sponsorship, before you go and beat these companies up and make it so much harder for us, that are out there trying to do it as well, make sure that you've done your homework and have something to show these people that is worth sponsoring, and I hate to just keep beating on that, but I see so much of it. Just people just make a random Facebook post looking for sponsorship, maybe hadn't raced in a year or two, or hadn't won a race in God knows how long, and just think that because they ask, they're going to get it. You got to work for it, man. And it is hard. There's money out there, but it is daggum hard to find it. I don't care if you're looking for $100 at a time or 100,000 at a time. It's a tough time to find sponsorship, and for the younger generation out there looking for it, go out there and prove you're worth it. And then go for it, man. Go for the big one. If you want to race an NHRA Pro Mod, come on, water's warm.
Awesome. No, thank you for that. I'll tell you, actually, before I go on to the next question, is there anything else that you're worked up on that wanna say? I mean, that's it. That's it. Okay.
I think I'm good.
Cool. Because the whole purpose of this show is to inspire, to motivate, to educate, and to really get the fire out, so people really know from the people who are doing it. Because I mean, I'll tell you what, so often people see some of the things that you do and that I do and that the Drag Illustrated people do, and they don't see how much work it actually takes. Like people for me too, they see this and they're like, oh, like I'll do a podcast too. And it's like this is like a 4 to 5 person thing that we got going on. This is just not me. Like, this is the easy part. This is the easy part. The rest of it is the hard part. What's the last thing for your peers?
For the ones that have helped me along the way, and stand beside me, whether I'm racing beer money or at an NHRA national event, is that I just appreciate them, and my dad, my buddies, I still got some high school buddies that go to race with me even today, been hard at it with me for 15, well, longer than that now, 18 years now. But for those that are around me and within my inner circle, just, that I just appreciate them sticking with me. And for those that are interested in being a part of what we're doing, I'm just a phone call away. But people like you guys, which y'all are more than peers, y'all are some of my friends, that I thank you guys for what you do for us as well. It's easy for us to just go out here and do it day to day, but it's for you guys to go out there and tell our stories and help us promote ourselves and do the back end, hard work for us. I told you, or I was telling you before the show, I called Nate Van Wagner on the way here for a press release about my 2024 plans to race a full year in NHRA Pro Modified with Scott Tidwell, and it takes people like you guys to make it happen. And I can't thank you enough. Wes and Drag Illustrated has done a lot for me. And you guys are great for us. The sport would not be what it is today without you. That's for sure.
Good deal, man. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for being a guest on the show. Thank you for telling your story, for sharing your story, for living your story honestly, so that we could all see it. We know you're not BSing. We see it every day. Just last thing is what the community here, what can we do for you?
Honestly, for free 99, you can go and follow me on my social media platforms, like and share anything that we post, follow us on the podcast. And if you're a business owner out there interested in marketing in the NHRA space, I'm like I said earlier, and I've said many times on the show today, looking for partnerships to race the entire season for NHRA Pro Modified. I have sponsorship levels and packets and all the things you need to know what to do to help us out. It's been a cool ride, man. It's far from over. I'm excited to be back in the NHRA next year to run the full season. I got a family now, so it's gonna look a little different. JT won't have me out at the hotel bars 2 or 3 nights in a row till the sun comes up. But I'm just happy to be back out there and be back with the people that I call friends. So like I said, for any of you out there who are looking to do anything sponsorship wise for 2024, I am your guy.
He's your guy. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Thank you for sharing all your stories to help and educate, inspire, and motivate the community down there. Thanks for all the advice you give. And we'll be following you, and we'll see you next year out on the circuit.
Sounds good, man. Thank you.
All right. And thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Drag Illustrated's The Racing Business. We're brought to you by Drag Illustrated, also Racers Club. Make sure that you go out and get some super cool Racers Club stuff. By the way, I saw you in your Racers Club stuff.
Yeah, dude. I like my Racers Club gear now. That's a good point. The West Buck's new deal is that Racers Club stuff is nice.
It is.
It's nice apparel, so go pick some up for sure.
Yeah, it's so perfect, like just dual purpose stuff. Look good at the track, look good outside the track. I love it too. And big shout out to our executive producer JT Hudson, who helps get all this stuff, part of that team that you don't see here, that does all the work that it really takes to get this stuff going and get all this great information to you guys. So love you much. Keep it up. Keep your businesses going. Keep the industry going. And we'll see you guys next week.
Yes, sir. Thank you.